Hello and welcome to John Moores. My name is Jane Murdoch and I am a tutor with the Academic Achievement Team. And we are a team of skills tutors, maths and stats tutors and English tutors who provide support and development to all students across the university. And you can find out a little bit more about us at the end of this presentation. But this presentation is about you. It's about getting you started at John Moores in a really positive way. It's a collection of our top tips. It's a collection of advice from students already studying at John Moores. And what this will do is help you get organised, help you begin to see very clearly what it is to be a student at John Moores, the type of things you're going to be asked to do, some strategies about how to do those things. So once we've worked through this, you're going to have a really good idea of what you're being expected to engage in while you're on your course and how you're going to do that. So let's get on and have a look at some of these ideas. So the very first thing I'm going to talk to you about is Canvas. Now, I'm not the first person who's probably talked to you about Canvas, but I might be the first person to really stress the importance of it. And if I'm not, if somebody else has already, that's just reinforcing how important it is. Canvas is the portal to your course. Your dashboard contains everything you need to really get going in all your modules really positively. And so the first thing I'm going to advise you to do is to get into Canvas. Have a good look around in all your modules. Make sure you've got all your modules. If you're missing some, go to your course office. Make sure you get them on that dashboard as soon as possible. If you've got any problems with Canvas, again, go to your school office. Really important that you get your Canvas working as quickly as you can. And if you're having any problems, you tell somebody as soon as possible, because this is especially important this year. In Canvas, you're going to find a huge amount of information about each of your modules. You're going to have all your information about what you might need to read. You're going to have timetables. You're going to have information about your sessions. It's also the place that you're going to go to participate in online learning sessions. They will probably be run through Canvas. It will also be the place where the recordings of those sessions will be found. Your lecturers will use it to give you lots of information, which they might do through the announcements tool, or they might do through the chat or discussion boards. So really getting, into Canvas, working out how each module is set up, because each lecturer may set their modules up slightly differently. So working out where everything is very early doors is really going to help you be, secure, know what's going on, know where you can go to find information. So get into Canvas in a really positive way. Don't just sort of glance at it, think I'll look at that when I need it. Spend some time in the first and second week, really getting their head around how each of those Canvas modules work. And, just to add to that, as you probably know, but if you don't, there is a really great Canvas app. So if you have some room on your phone, it's a good idea to download it, set up your notifications so that as soon as anything comes through, if there's an announcement or your lecturer adds something, you'll get a notification on your phone so you know immediately to go in and have a look as soon as you get time. And just to reiterate that thing about announcements and notifications, you need to make sure, get into your settings, make sure you're setting up your notifications. There should be some really great information available to you in the first week about how to do that from one of our teams, other teams within the university, about how to set up your notifications in Canvas, because you need to get them on so you're up to date and you know what's going on. But if you get the app, it's quite straightforward and you're going to be up to date and you're basically carrying around your whole course in your pocket if you can on your phone. So first thing, get into Canvas. It's your portal to your course. So that brings us, to thinking a little bit about what it's going to be like this year. And you are really in an absolutely fantastic position because, as we know, your learning this year is going to be a mixture of online participation and possibly some face-to-face participation. So you're getting a real opportunity in relation to your online provision to develop your digital skills. Now, these digital skills are obviously vital for your course, but they're also skills that, as we're becoming more and more aware of, are absolutely vital for employment. So you're going to get the opportunity to look at lots of different software packages for engagement online, classes online, lots of different software packages maybe to help you interact with other students. So this is a really great opportunity to develop those digital skills, to work out how things work out, how you can use them for different things you're being asked to do. So obviously, many of you will have participated in some online learning while you were at college or at school towards, the end of the last academic period. But what we did was, obviously over the summer, we've been teaching primarily online, and we had a bit of a session with some of our students who've been to a lot of our classes, and we asked them for some top tips that we could pass on to you from how they found participating in online sessions at John Moores. So basically, as you can see here, first tip is join in. Now, each lecturer is going to set up their online sessions differently. Some of them will ask you to have cameras on, cameras off, audio on, audio off. So obviously you'll be guided by them. But don't feel too intimidated if you're asked to put your camera on. It's not always necessary to start with. And if you don't feel confident about perhaps speaking, one way that our students found to join in really positively was using the chat box features. Now, obviously, as I say, in certain big sessions, it might not be possible, and your lecturers will guide you about how they want you to get involved. But if the chat box feature is available, it's a really positive way of adding in some comments to a discussion, answering a question your lecturer throws out, or possibly if you're put into breakout rooms to communicate with other people in your group. So use that chat box. It helps you build up your confidence, and then gradually you might feel more confident to switch your camera on and to be seen online. But really good feature, the chat box. Keep an eye on it. Lots of great things go in there. You will see, what you'll start seeing is that you're not the only person with that question. You'll start seeing people saying things and adding things to the discussion, which is only going to add to the whole learning experience. So get your chat box on and join in. The other thing that our students have said, and I can really support this, online sessions are best accessed through PC or a laptop rather than your phone. This is just through trial and error, understanding how different platforms work. So if you can, really try to do that. Try to get on your laptop, or get on a PC, or possibly, if you can, book a PC in the library as we start progressing through the year. Now, that's not to say things won't work on your phone, and if you only have your phone, obviously have a go. Follow the links, follow the instructions from your tutors about how to access the session. It's better to have a go on your phone than not join in at all, and sometimes things can work out. But what we found and what our students found is that phones can be a little bit problematic. So if you can, get on your laptop or your PC rather than your phone. But if you've got your phone, have a go. But if you've got some problems, don't be disheartened. It's often the case. Another thing we found is that a lot of our students were talking to us about the learning online. And, what we found is that, a lot of students said, well, when it first started off, they were very used to sort of being online, doing different things. So they were used to being online, maybe, watching TV. They were used to being online, having quite a lot of different browsers open and flicking between things at the same time. And so what they found was that they had to think of little tips and tricks to really keep engaged with online learning sessions rather than just sort of like passively watching or letting it pass before their eyes, a bit like a sort of, the 10th episode of a Netflix box set that you're making yourself watch at 3 a.m. So what they sort of said was, really approach the online sessions as you might do with a face-to-face session. Have paper and a pen ready. Be ready to write some notes. Be ready to, as your lecturer starts off the session with the aims of the session, jot those aims down to help you structure your notes. Be ready to really positively engage and be an active learner, and, push yourself to write things down and make notes, because that keeps you more engaged and stops you just sort of becoming very passive and letting it all sort of wash over you. And another thing that, they said, and it's something that we always recommend, is that, don't forget to check if your lecturer's put something on Canvas for you to do before the session. This could be a whole range of things, some reading, you might be asked to watch something, a whole range of activities. But that will help you focus in and become engaged, because you're already getting used to what the session's going to be about. You've already started thinking about it. And you might actually make some notes from that, say, if it's a piece of reading, and then you're going to add to those really actively as you actually participate in the session. So these were their four main ideas. Join in, use the chat box, PC or laptop rather than phone, be active, write things down, make sure you're prepared, make sure you've checked on Canvas if there's anything you're supposed to do before you get to the session. And then another big thing that came out in our chats with the students over the summer when we were preparing to put this together for was this concept of time. And one thing that, we often think about is whether we have enough time. And when we were chatting to students, they were sort of saying that things that they'd found helped them was thinking about time really differently, was to think about, rather than thinking, oh, I don't have enough time, it was to sort of look for time. And what they were saying is that they found that they had more time than they thought, and they did find it possible to do some types of work in places away from the desk. So, they just sort of were looking at time a little bit differently, looking at learning opportunities a little bit differently. And, this meant that they started finding time to do things, different sorts of things. Obviously, you will need to be at a desk if you're going to write something, but different sorts of learning activities can take place in situations where you might think it's not possible. And, what we mean by this is, say, for example, students were talking to us that, they go to the gym, gym sessions. We had students talking about people who, maybe travel a little bit to get in on buses and trains, even, obviously walking. So what we were finding is that students were saying that they were using those times to engage in a little bit of work. And this meant that, they were carrying things with them as much as possible. We had lots of students talking about always having some notes or a particular course book in their bag. Students, obviously, who, had the data availability on their phone, saying that they would look at things through the Canvas app related to their course when they were perhaps on the train or traveling. Another thing that we found that when we were talking to students was this kind of other sources of information. So some students were talking about listening to podcasts connected to their subject area just to get a bigger picture. And obviously, there's a whole range of podcast providers. And some of your lecturers might well include some recommendations like that on your book list, which I'm going to talk to you about in a minute. So, this idea that you do have time, find the pockets of time, always have something with you so that if you are sitting waiting, you can do some reading or listen to a podcast about a topic related to your course. Now, I'm just adding to this. I'm not saying now you're at John Moores, every minute of every day must be focused on work. But just having this kind of positive mindset about using time, about seeing opportunities to just do a little bit of reading or listening to something that's relevant, or maybe as you're making your tea, maybe you watch a certain kind of YouTuber. Anyway, we all usually have some kind of YouTube video on at some point in the day. Well, if you're making your tea, fling on something relevant to your course, or as you see on this screen, this guy here, this guy is called College Info Geek, and if you give him a little bit of a Google, he's got a whole YouTube channel and a podcast. And what he makes videos about is aspects of learning and studying at university. He's an extremely successful academic, but he basically talks about learning in a way that's really easy to follow with some absolutely brilliant tips. So, his podcasts, we've used them a lot, and students always respond to them and say they're really great. So you could download one of his podcasts, or you could have one of his YouTube videos on as you're doing something, and actually be picking up some tips about, how to approach reading, or this one's about how to get so much done. He even has a video on how to pack your bag for university. So if that floats your boat, have a look at him, College Info Geek. But just thinking about time slightly differently and how you can use it positively in relation to getting things done. So obviously, to go back to Canvas, I mentioned at the beginning, one of the things you'll find on Canvas, and I'm sure your tutors have highlighted, is their reading lists. And so if you're thinking about what kind of things should I be carrying in my bag if I want to do some reading, or I wonder if there's any podcasts or websites that my, lecturer recommends for us to look at, the best place to start is to look on Canvas at the reading list or the resources list that your lecturers have put together. And sometimes we kind of, that gets a little bit forgotten about. Remember that your lecturers are experts in their field. They are people who have up-to-date research and knowledge about what's been published, or what needs to be read about, what needs to be looked at, connected to your subject area. So what they've done is they've helped you access their years and years of training and learning in this area by putting together this resources list for you on Canvas. So it's a really good starting point if you're just looking to get going in your reading. Now, obviously, they've put those things there. They might ask you to read certain things before lectures or seminars. Obviously, the books and resources there are connected to preparing for your assignments as well. But there will also be a whole range of things that they might suggest just to help you build up this big picture and knowledge of your subject. So some lecturers put documentaries or films. There's a whole range of things that could be there. But it's a really good starting point if you're trying to work in those pockets of time, having a bit of reading with you. So you might have a look at your Canvas reading list, and if there's a book that says recommended text or key text, that is often the book that a lot of the reading for your lectures is connected to. That means that's the key book they want you to have this semester. So that's usually a good one to see if you can get an e-copy of, or a cheap copy of secondhand, and that's a really good starting point for something to carry around with you if it's not too huge. But again, just have a look at what they're suggesting, and then you can then develop collecting those resources, and then you can start having things with you to start using your time really positively. Now, why am I talking a lot about reading and resources? Well, this is a really key point. Now we've started John Moore's, it's really, really important that we are looking at academic sources, good quality information. Or if we're looking at a wide range of sources, we're aware of things we need to be careful about in relation to those sources. And this is to do with things that are academic in style and tone, and things that are less academic or more general. And we need to make sure that although general sources are really great for keeping us up to date with, say, things that are changing in our area. So we might, read a really good quality newspaper, and if we're studying business, say, for example, we might look at the business stories. But that's giving us a good picture of what's generally going on in business. But if we really want to know more theoretically, which is the whole reason we're here at university, if university was just about reading what was in newspapers and writing about it, it would seem silly to go through this process. So really what we're doing is we're pushing on from that. So we need to add to that sort of general reading with specific academic texts and books. And those are the things that are listed on Canvas. And once you've got your head around the type of thing that your lecturers are suggesting, you've got an understanding of what is an academic text, then you can move away from that and maybe start selecting some more things yourselves from the online library. And that's, as you go through the course, that will be expected a little bit more. So why am I talking about sources and reading? Because it's really critical that we're doing it, but it's also really critical that we're reading and looking at the right things, or we are aware of what is suitable and what isn't. This is about is academic sources. So what I've got here for you is a video which will explain this in a lot more detail, talk to you a little bit more about what are academic sources, what aren't academic sources, and things we need to think about in relation to selecting them. And also this will help you begin to understand how your lecturers put that reading list together on Canvas, because it's built on their understanding of what is and isn't academic. So have a good look at that video. It's really going to help you understand how that book list was put together, and also help you begin to, look at sources independently yourself and be aware of which sources are academic, which are less academic, which you can of course read, but what you might need to be careful about if you do read those less academic sources. So next, just sets of tips. We've looked now at reading, using pockets of time, what we should be reading, how to find out. A little bit of a pointer here about how we want to read. Now, remember that, I'm not going to tell you how to read, but when we're reading, we need to be active. And this means that at university, we are really looking in detail at what is being said in the things we're being asked to read. And what this means is having a bit of a questioning attitude to the readings we're given. So we're trying to find out what the writers are telling you. What are they telling me about? What's the topic? What are they telling me about that topic? What kind of details are they giving me? What kind of details are they not giving me? Is there an argument or a point of view being put forward here in this reading? Is there a conclusion that they want me to accept? Is there enough evidence for me to accept it? So we really need to be reading with a questioning attitude, reading and thinking about what the writers are telling us about, why they're telling us that, and how they're telling us that. What kind of evidence and examples are they putting forward? Is this evidence and example still relevant? Is it up to date, or was it done in the 1970s? Is it relevant and up to date, or is this, some kind of experimentation that's only ever been carried out once with 2 or 3 participants? We need to be very questioning when we're reading these sources to work out what they're telling us, why and how they're telling us those things. And then we need to be thinking about different readings. So, we're not going to be just looking at one source on one topic. Now we're at university, we might need to look at a whole range of different sources or readings about one topic. And what you're going to need to be doing is thinking questioningly about the differences or similarities between those sources. Are these writers giving you the same ideas or different? Is somebody saying one thing is better than another? We're looking, comparing, contrasting. We're trying to think about the different viewpoints, the different things each writer is trying to tell us, and what makes them different. And then which of these things do we think may be better? Now this "what do you think" question is really, really important. So basically, this is a real key point about being at university. When you've read your sources and thought about what they mean, you might start needing or finding yourself coming to a conclusion. You might think that, one set of readings, one set of arguments is stronger than another. But this isn't just off the top of your head. You're not just reading one source and saying, that's it, that's the answer, that's what I believe. What you're building up is what we call a picture, or a critical picture. This means you've been thinking about all these different points of view. And on the basis of your analysis of asking these questions, you're coming to a conclusion. And what you're showing is, when you start reading and then using that reading in your writing, what you'll be showing is to your lecturers how you've come to a conclusion about something, by showing all the good quality reading that you've done to support the conclusion you've come to. So don't worry too much about that at the moment. I'm just giving you an idea here. But the main thing to take away from this is, don't just read very passively. You need to be looking about what you're being told in the readings and comparing and contrasting the content of different readings, the aspects of different writers' work with each other. That's what we're here to do at university. We're here to find out about all the different views and arguments, all the different theories, strategies, methods of experimentation. We're here to look at them and to see whether one is better in one situation or another situation. We're here to build up that knowledge and begin to make conclusions based on that knowledge. So what you're doing is that you're zooming in great detail on each individual source or reading and looking at it, looking at the aspects of it. Who wrote it? When did they write it? What is they're trying to tell me? How are they telling me this? How have they put together this piece of work? How have they come to these conclusions? Is it based on a piece of research? Is it based on an experiment? We're looking in great detail and zooming in on each individual source. And as we read a whole range of sources, we're going to zoom out and look at the big picture that those sources are giving us. We're going to be seeing which sources fit together because they're saying the same thing, which sources say different things. So we're getting a big picture of the landscape of whether people have different opinions or whether maybe everybody has the same opinion. Maybe everybody uses this theory. Maybe everybody used this method of experimentation. So we're zooming out, but we can only zoom out once we've looked in detail at each individual source, because we can only see the big picture if we've really spent time understanding the details of each individual piece. So reading with this approach is preparing us for our assignments at university, because we're building up this lovely overview, and within that overview, we've got lots of lovely, important detail. And this is the sort of reading approach that we're going to need to do. So just to move on a little bit to assignments, once we've, thought about our reading, well, we need to start thinking about how that connects to assignments. So things you need to know is, number one, break down the question. And what that means is really find out what the question is asking you to do. Now, don't worry, lots of lecturers will be running assignment briefing sessions where they'll talk to you in great detail about your assignment questions. But what I mean is, don't just quickly read it, find out what the main topic is, and then go and find out lots and lots about that topic. Most questions are asking you to look at an aspect of a topic, not just write down everything you know about this thing. So really break down the question and find out what it is they're asking you to do. So that means you might have to check what the words mean. You might need to look up specialist words. You might need to look at words such as discuss, evaluate, describe. These are the question words which are going to lead you into the correct sort of reading and then the correct sort of writing. Another thing to do with your assignment is to look on Canvas and look at the learning objectives. The learning objectives is what your tutor wants you to have learned by running through this whole module and carrying out this assignment. So that's what you should be learning by doing it. And they're really helpful because they're going to point us in the right direction to the right reading. Because if that's what they want us to learn, that's going to direct us to what we should read to be able to learn and do something. Another thing to remember about assignments university is that it's perfectly normal to spend longer reading, note-making and planning than writing. I'm going to come on to that in a little bit more detail later on, but that's the process and that's perfectly normal for you to do more reading, note-making and planning than writing up. So this is just a few top tips about assignments. And if you want to know a bit more about this in great detail, if you want to know how to break down a question, if you want to know more about the reading and writing process, this link is going to take you to the Academic Achievement Tiered Skills module. And there's lots more information in there which will help you really see what I'm talking about in more detail. So what's next? Well, what we're doing now with our assignments, so we've got our readings, we've collected our readings, we know what's academic, what isn't academic, we've read with that questioning attitude. What are we going to do? Well, we've understood what the assignment's about. Well, obviously, what we need to do, thinking about those questions that we're asking while we're reading is we need to use those to create and make notes. It is not a helpful strategy just to read lots of things and then start trying to write. You must, at John Moores, now you've started your university career, is you must read with that questioning attitude and then write notes from the sources. Now, there's 3 things we need you to know. You need a purpose for note making. You need to know about how you're going to use them. And then we're moving on to the end there. What does all this mean? So the purpose, you need your purpose. Why are you making these notes? You might be making notes to prepare for a class, so you just need to jot down some definitions of key words, names of key theorists, maybe draw some diagrams, write down some key equations. That's what you might need to participate or follow what's going on in a lecture or a class. If it's for an assignment, you might be looking for something in more detail. You might be looking for different arguments or points of view about a topic or different strategies. So keep your purpose in mind. Notes are different for each purpose. And how do you do it? Well, this is the thing I was talking about before about reading and writing. Don't just copy out chunks. Don't just highlight chunks of a handout or a printout or on your screen. Think about that purpose. How are you going to use the information? If you've broken down the question and you're really clear what you're being asked to write about, then you will be more likely to be selective in pulling out the right information. So remember, what you're looking for here is not just copying out the words. What you're looking for is the ideas in that reading. And it's the ideas that you're going to write about in your notes. Because if we just copy chunks out, first of all, we're going to be in a right pickle we start writing up, because we're just going to be basically copying directly from books. We're just going to get us in a pickle in relation to having too much work, not in our own words. But it's also not showing any thought or analysis. Anybody can copy chunks out of a book, but you're not anybody. You're at university. So you are here because we know what you can do is go beyond the words and see the ideas that those words are telling us about. And that's what we're here to make notes about, and that's what we're here to write about. But the one thing you need to do is to make sure you make a note of where the information came from. You're going to need that for your Harvard referencing. So who wrote the book, year it was written, title, and so on. And again, there is information on the John Moores website about referencing, and I'm sure your lecturers have spoken to you about it. So we're thinking about ideas, we're not just copying out. So these are what you need to think about in relating notes. Now, if you want some more ideas, this is a YouTuber, and she's got some really brilliant strategies, some genuine examples, university student from the University of Edinburgh, about how she puts together her notes. Really great introduction if you're looking for some more strategies. So the only thing I'd say is her notes, as you can just see in this picture, are really quite beautiful. Yours don't have to be so beautiful. They just need to be useful. So, you know, you could apply some of her strategies, but you don't necessarily need to do them in exactly the same fashion. But what you're going to be able to take from this is, you know, how notes are put together, you know, and how you can really make notes really valuable from reading. And she does also talk about lectures as well. So we've got our notes and we're ready now to write up. So just thinking about some top tips about writing for assignments. Do not read, write and think all at the same time. So if your previous strategy has been to have perhaps a few screens open, a few things in front of you, and you're reading a little bit, writing a little bit, and so on and so forth, don't do that. You're going to get in a pickle. It's really difficult to think, read and write all at the same time, and it's really difficult to structure an essay or a report effectively with that strategy. So remember, going back to the beginning, you have enough time not to have to do that. If you're using your pockets of time to carry things around with you, to do bits of reading, you're gradually working through your reading. Just leaving everything till the last minute means that we're more tempted to take that strategy. And often what happens is that we get a little muddled doing that, and we're not really showing enough thinking. So that's the first thing to think about in relation to writing up your assignments. And then here I've got a couple of things related to the grammar or the structure. Remember, academic writing does not usually use the first person I or my. We don't write I think or in my opinion. This is because what we are writing about is based on research and evidence, that reading, the ideas that you found in that reading. It's not based on your opinions just out of your head. So we would say something like, the research indicates, this particular theorist suggests. It's not about the first person, it's not about I, it's about the evidence and analysis of that. And that really is to do with style and tone. And another aspect of that is that we don't use short forms in academic writing. We don't have don't, can't, isn't, do not, cannot, is not. Just to give it that really academic level style and tone. And what you're doing is now you're going to be trying to use the specialist language you're coming across, the terms that you are seeing in your reading, the language that you're seeing and hearing your lecturers use. You're going to begin to work that into your writing and work as well. And then finally, another thing to think about is paragraphing. Remember that our assignments should have clear introductions, clear body paragraphs, clear conclusions. We don't just write, as we feel like it. We don't just start paragraphs randomly. And again, that brings me all the back to the beginning where I came into this slide, is that you're more likely to be able to write clear beginnings, middles and ends of assignments if you've spent some time thinking and planning rather than just reading and writing at the same time. So, as we're on paragraphs, I'm going to hit you with a bit of weed structure. Now, probably many of you have had some ideas about paragraphing from college or at school. You might have heard of Peel. Some of you might have heard of Sexy. Well, this is weed, and this is a structure that we really like and our students really have found really beneficial to them. And the weed structure means that it enables us to show that research, show that thinking that we did when we were doing that reading, show that we have been able to pull out some conclusions from the reading. We found the ideas. And it also shows that we've spent time understanding the question and what we're supposed to be writing about. So there's a whole range of things that using this structure can do. A lot of the things I've mentioned today can be really brought together if you use this paragraphing structure. So the way WEED works is we have the W, and that's usually the first sentence. And some of you might have heard the term topic sentence. This is a sentence at the beginning of the paragraph that tells the reader what it's going to be about. It's not a mystery. And again, if you've planned and thought about your structure, you're more likely to know that than just randomly reading a bit and writing a bit. So what's this paragraph about? Again, most paragraphs have one clear topic, and that's shown in the first sentence. And then we fill up the body of the paragraph by explaining that topic and giving some evidence and examples from our research and reading to really help the reader understand that particular topic or idea. But the main thing about a wee paragraph is that we finish it off, we conclude it. And we pull it together. And this is, going back to what we were saying about reading and thinking about the ideas that we've read about and really sort of spending time analysing them a bit more. And all this might have a bit more meaning if I show you this example. So what we've got here is, we've got a clear opening sentence. 2020 will offer some new experiences for students. So that's telling me what this is about, new experience for students. And then I'm explaining that a little bit more, why I'm having new experiences, changes in the university environment example. And then here we've got this evidence. Now notice the references here, okay? This isn't just evidence off the top of people's heads or something they've guessed about. This is evidence taken from some of the reading lists that they found, readings that they've been suggested by their lecturer on Canvas. And what they're doing is they're supporting this idea, they're evidencing, giving evidence to explain why there's going to be new experiences for students there. Okay, they're going to learn how to participate in Zoom. That's a new experience. They'll develop academic reading and writing skills. So that will be new experiences. So, but then they haven't just stopped. They've drawn a conclusion. They've brought it to a lovely ending. So all that information about these new experiences, well, we could say that's going to suggest that this academic year is going to be really interesting and exciting and have great opportunities. So they've come to a conclusion there. They've looked at the evidence and there they've written in a conclusion. And no, they haven't said, I think this means. Notice there's no I or my there, but they've come to a conclusion based on analysis of the ideas that they've read about. And they've presented that nice weed paragraph. So that's another thing to think about. And again, there's a lot more information on that in that Canvas module I pointed out to you earlier. So I'm coming to an end now. Yes, you are finally getting rid of my voice. And what we're going to suggest is there is a little quiz underneath here where we've gone through some of the things, some of the films and activities and ideas that I've suggested, and just asked you a few questions to help you remember those things and maybe point you in the direction of some further resources and ideas that are going to help you. So have a go at that quiz. You know, it's just to help you really make sure you've taken some of the key points away from this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. You will also find underneath a little bit of a booklet about who the Academic Achievement Team are, and I'm really hoping that you're going to come to see us, you're going to attend some of our other sessions, maybe have one-to-one appointments. Some of you might be seeing us in your actual online classes because we come out and deliver sessions across the whole university. So I'm really looking forward to meeting you, and I would like to wish you the very best of success and luck at John Moores. But remember, you're not going to need that luck so much, because if you follow these top tips, you're going to start this semester in a really positive way.